Hi, so like most people that have a GX460, I've slowly been trying to take it towards the GXOR. I have a 2017 example, it's the luxury with crawl control. Added MTS, eventually added a 2.5 inch Dobinson lift with some 285 KO2s and some Ridge Rhinos tire. And I got the CBI bumper, ordered it in August, it came in November, and I didn't end up installing it until the middle of December, and installing it at night is just a fabulous idea. It ended up working, but nighttime is like 6 p.m., so what are you gonna do? If you go online, there's great guides. TXGX has a great detailed guide on how to take apart the bumper, as well as some of the winch information. I think he did a Smitty build. I did Badlands 12,000 pound, and with just a regular wire cord. And there's also the CBI official video, which is nice. It's interesting. It's on a 2020 version, which for most people doing this is probably going to be on the grills like this. And anyway, I counted about 3 full honeycombs from the top of where the top being towards the Lexus emblem, and measured that. It's below the parking sensors, and so there have been people asking if the parking sensors and adaptive cruise control and the front-facing camera are unaffected, and they are unaffected. So everything seems to work. Pre-crash collision system seems to work, and haven't noticed any issues with sensing. I mean, you're higher, obviously, so if there's an object that's lower, it might not pick it up, but typically you can now roll over it because you're much taller, but hopefully it's not something important. So I elected to do the 2-tape method, where I put tape on top and bottom of my cut line. This allowed me to have a landing pad for the ankle grinder as I was going around the bumper. I'll have to come back and do some spots again because some of it will fuse due to the heat, and it's good to wear gloves because you can help pull and kind of break some of the plastic molding, but it's very flimsy, and once you're cutting into it, it just kind of falls away. And so overall, the exterior here, it's just more about making slow cuts. I made some cuts that were closer towards the part that I was going to remove, so I can come back later, which I had to, and resize some of the areas. But for most of it, I used the angle grinder. I used 2 batteries, and the angle grinder was great to make a lot of these initial cuts, especially like this long flat cut across the front. It's a little weird with the honeycomb, but the angle grinder does a good job of getting things started. I ended up going back with an oscillating saw to get some of the parts of the honeycomb that stayed behind, and also used the oscillating saw in the corners. And the corners are exceptionally tricky, so be careful in there. You don't want to cut in too much, but again, you'll be using trim, and so once you get your bumper test fitted and recut, the trim will help cover up most of the imperfections. Only part you really can't put trim on is the chrome portion. A lot of people that do this end up doing chrome delete. Don't know if I'll go down that route yet. But yeah, the corners are exceptionally tricky. And again, I ended up, after I dropped the bumper, I came back with the oscillating saw and did some more cleaning of these little honeycombs. And once you get the front bumper on there, and for me, I have a front license plate, it really kind of covers up any hanging little pieces of plastic that might still be there. One thing with the front honeycomb, it does get a little bit loose, and I found that having that front license plate helped kind of secure that. I don't know if that's a fact that they had to drill into it in the beginning to put the front license plate in there. Either way, the front license plate seems to help keep that area secure. Ended up having to raise the front license plate over the top of the winch, so it wasn't being blocked and rubbing against it at high speeds. Did have a time where the trim fell off on the corner while driving, and you kind of hear it rattling. Had to put that back on. So far that has not happened again. And overall the front bumper was pretty easy to disassemble. So after you take this front panel down, you'll be taking off the foam and metal brackets that are behind there, as well as the skid plate underneath in the front, which I ended up reusing. I have CBI skid plates and backs and RCI fuel tank covers on their way, but as the industry is, it might take a little while to get the armor. And then you pull out your standoffs and you strip everything down. You get the ability to fit your bumper with the winch in there. You know, mounting the solenoid took the longest amount of time. Make sure the thing fits, trim it up. With the winch I had, it was a wired winch, so I ended up running the wire near the battery. Worked out well. I cut 2 holes in the top plastic to access the winch. That gives me access to the wires underneath in case something gets shorted, and also to the unhinge to walk out the leash. And so there it is, finished, and it looks pretty good. And so now it's time to go to the rock sliders, and here you have to take off the running boards, and there's a screw in the front you have to take out. But otherwise, disassemble these. When you get them down to the flimsy plastic, you can just mount them back on to the vehicle. And then I measured about 4.5 in the front and about 2.5 from the back, in that line there at the door, and cut it off. And then you just slide the slider in there after you unhinge a couple bolts. And again, CBI's videos are great for that. I went back and got the lights, so I had to grind these off the metal frame that you disassemble. And once they're grinded off, I was able to cut off a side portion of it that allowed it to rotate 90 degrees and bolt right back onto the frame where it came from. And so far they've been good for 1,200 miles, and I've been satisfied. So that's just a little bit so far, and it's looking pretty good. Thanks to everyone on the communities like I Hate Mud and Club Lexus for their recommendations and guides. It's been fun learning this. And I've only gone through one upper A-arm so far. Probably my own fault. Didn't have it tightened enough. Thanks for watching. I have an internal review of me driving, if you want to watch that. Also just as boring.